Hello, everybody, and welcome to Module 2 of Dark Force Mastery, or Fuck Dark Forces, essentially is what the program is called, but what we are doing is gaining Dark Force Mastery. How are we feeling from last time? I hope good. I hope we're letting it marinate in us. So I wanted to go over some quick little pros of Dark Force Mastery while we're here. It's sometimes hard for us to, even though you're all here from a soul calling, and I'm sure also a human want to learn this stuff, when it gets a little more, we get in the dirt of it, right? Or in the thick of it, it can get a little more oh my gosh, this is a lot going on. Why am I doing this? Why am I learning this? And I just want I want to put some of our highest values as humans in front of you and show you why it's so important to be really diving deep, taking your time, learning dark forces. Just if you ever need a motivator as going through this course, even though we make it so much fun in here, if we're in the middle of learning how to clear a dark force and you're like, fuck man, why am I doing this? This is just a good reminder for you as to why it's so important. So dark force mastery, number one, will allow us to gain the ability to be around people and not get drained, okay? So we will be able to learn how to be around anyone, literally at a concert with 40,000 people, literally with the person in your family that you can't stand the most. This will allow you to be around anyone, anytime, anywhere, and not have your power taken away and not get drained. The thing with spiritual people is how they're so easily drained, right? Because you are finding yourself more connected to your intuition. You're finding yourself more, I don't like the word more conscious, but truly you're more conscious and aware of how the world works and how things works and why certain things happen and that kind of thing. So people tend to flock towards you, right? Has anyone ever came to you? They can just feel your little healer soul and they just word dump onto you. And because you have such a big heart and you're an empath, you sit there and you take it all on and you listen to them for 3 hours while you're watching your watch the whole time. And then you leave feeling insanely fucking drained. I get it. Your girl has been there. I've been there. I get it. However, we don't have to live like that though. We can get to train our intuition, train our consciousness, keep evolving in all of these things and not have to have the other side of that massively affect us and drain us, because the truth is the more conscious we are, the more intuitive we are, the more sensitive we are, and the more susceptible and vulnerable we are to other energies weighing us down, to dark forces, and we'll get into that a little later today. But even, again, like I said, even if you choose to want to be around 40,000 people at a concert, you'll be able to go in and out unaffected. And if we don't learn how to clear these pollutions, the dark force pollutions, about 95% of our thoughts in our head on a daily basis are not ours, okay? So if we don't learn to clear dark force pollutions and just other people's thoughts out of us, which we're gonna learn today how to clear other people's thoughts out of us, which is so much fun, and emotions. If we don't learn to clear that, 95%, you guys, of our thoughts, emotions, and even actions are not our own, okay? So you are out here walking the streets, not even living in your fullest gifts and fullest potential, maybe 5% of it, if you're not clearing this stuff. And so whether you want to teach this stuff or be a healer or be an intuitive in your life, or you just want to have a good life, this is essential to learn. Obviously essential to learn if you want to be an intuitive and a healer, for sure. If you want to be the best of the best, you've got to learn this. But if you just want to go around and have a happy life and be connected to your authenticity, this is just as essential to learn for that and be able to reach your specific fullest potential. This is just as fucking important. So today what's going to be fun is we're going to learn how to do an energy recovery from people, which is clearing other people's stuff out of us, getting our energy back from them, which literally it's like drinking a cup of coffee. I don't drink coffee. I don't drink any caffeine because I don't need it, because I literally get my energy from source and I get my own energy back from myself. We all get energy from source, but I know how to manipulate the energy so that I can get other people's energy out of me so it's not affecting me and I can get my energy back very easily. So you're gonna get to learn that too, and it's gonna be your spiritual, energetic cup of coffee in the morning or throughout the day whenever you need it. This is going to clean up your thoughts and your energy and your emotions. If you are healing people or giving people advice or intuitive information. It's going to be the highest form of intuition and advice you can give, even if you just want your intuition for yourself. The more intuitive you are, the more affected we get by these other dark pollutions, these dark force pollutions. So really important to know how to clear those out for even just channeling and being intuitive for yourself. And again, when you're intuitive, essentially you have this one big massive spotlight like waving around for everyone that wants and needs light and nourishment. They're gonna dump their shit onto you, you're gonna take it on, and they're gonna take your light, essentially is what happens. And the intuitive world, it sells you that the stronger your intuition, the better your intuition will be. That is so wrong. It's actually the opposite. The stronger your intuition is, the more prone you are to dark force pollution and the pollution of other people's thoughts and emotions, and the more it's going to throw you off. So someone who's walking around the streets like, you know, not tapping their intuition, not at a higher consciousness, whatever, they would probably be more intuitive than the person training their intuition without training how to clear dark forces and clear other people's energy. It's that crazy. How the more intuitive you are is not the better your intuition is, unless you are learning to clear these things off, clear off the dark force pollution, clear off other people's thought, emotional broadcasts that you've taken on. Because essentially what happens is, again, you're this one big spotlight, they find you, they dump their pollution onto you, and then they take some of your light to be able to continue to survive and function in the world, because this world, we need light to survive, and we'll get into that. So this course is also going to allow you to own what is yours by your divine right and become the best version of yourself and the most connected to the potential version of yourself and the healthiest version of yourself too, because what happens is if we are missing pieces of our light body, our physical body will start to fade. Our light body goes missing when the pollution gets dumped onto us, and then whoever's dumping it on takes part of our light body starts to go missing. We'll get into how and why, and like down to a scientific level, how that's factual a little later today in our module, but we just don't be wanting that to happen. So this is gonna be the easiest thing in your life. So this is gonna be like a tiny bit of work for massive payoffs. We're like, other spiritual tools and other energetic shifting is a lot of work. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of programming and a lot of rewiring your brain, a lot of rewiring your energy system, rewiring your creator field. This is like just tools, practices, knowledge, and it's going to be like the easiest thing you learn ever in your life. And we're making it, again, remember, very lighthearted. It is nothing to be scared of, especially when you have knowledge about it. Like, when you should be scared is when you don't have knowledge and you're here to gain the knowledge. So for everyone in here, nothing to be afraid of. Let's remember that as we continue. You'll probably hear me say that every single module, just as a reminder. And this is not going to like throw your life off in the slightest. If anything, it's just going to be insanely empowering. So you might think, oh my God, I was fine in life till I came to this course and then I started getting all these dark energies on me. No. You've always had them on you. You've always had them on you for maybe years, maybe going on and off of you. You've always been like this, but just like I said in the last module, it's kind of like if you're a woman, when we first get our period, we don't know when it's coming. We don't know what ovulation feels like. We don't know what the luteal phase, the PMS phase, right before we get our period feels like. We don't know all of these things and what they feel like until we start to learn about them, until we start to get older. I don't like the word older, until we start to grow more in age on earth, or spend more years on earth, I guess is the better way to put it. Until we start to spend more years on earth, then we start to realize like, oh, this is what it feels like when I'm ovulating. This is what it feels like right before my period. Like, and it doesn't mean that we weren't ovulating before. We just didn't realize what it felt like. When we learn what it feels like, we can pay better attention to it, and then we can feel it. And when we can feel it, it's good because then we know what to do. We know, okay, if I don't want to have a baby, don't let a man do the thing inside of me, what he has to do to get me pregnant, right? So we then have better understandings and better knowledge and better protection over ourselves. Same thing with dark forces, okay? Same thing where you're gonna start to feel like more of these symptoms of what it feels like having them on you. They've always been there. You're now just more aware. And becoming more aware and feeling them more is highly beneficial, so you can feel them, get them off of you, and not have to deal. Okay, so that's something also very important to remember. Now, a very common question people ask that I really want to get into is people ask, why can't I just send these things to light? And in the spiritual world, you will hear, especially at like plant medicine ceremonies, I've never been to one, but like I've heard from people that this is what they say, that, oh, anything that's dark, we're gonna sage it, we're gonna Palo Santo it, we're just gonna send it to light. We're gonna send it away to light. And what happens with that is that doesn't work, and I'm gonna explain why. I'm gonna explain a little bit why now, and then we get into a way deeper explanation of this a little bit later today in class, okay? So that doesn't work because one, the sage and the Palo Santo, that's like trying to kill a person with sage and Palo Santo. They're gonna be like, oh, that's a lot going on in my nose, but like, whatever. Like you can't take down a human with sage and Palo Santo. Same thing, dark forces are made up of matter as well, and you can't take those down with just sage and Palo Santo, okay? Number two, you can't just send them to light because again, that would be like asking you, not that you would, but like if you needed to murder someone or kill someone, to just send them to source just with your mind. You would need a tool, you need a knife, you need a gun, you need to like choke them. You would need to do something, right? To actually get them to cross over, right? So same thing with dark forces. You can't just like intend to send them to light. One, Source doesn't fucking want them. Source does not want them up where Source is in realm 7, trust me. Source is like, no thanks. So Source is like, yeah, not happening. And two, that would be like trying to send a literal person to light, to Source, with just your mind without some kind of tool. And you'll see in these processes, we are using different tools from Source to take these things down and get them off of us. So you can't just go, I choose to send everything dark to light. That won't work. That's kind of like choosing to send, again, like not to be dark or not like we're gonna, like not that we want to do this or we would, but that would be like somebody who wanted to go murder someone and then going, I choose to send you to light, and like have no tool to actually do it. It wouldn't work, okay? We're gonna get into why and the physics and science of that later, but I just want to touch on that a little bit because I already can feel those questions coming in, which are insanely valid questions. Like I would have the same questions too. Okay, so let's now go into, I want to kind of give like, I'm going deep in this course with you. I started out intending this to maybe be 6 to 7 weeks. It's not, it's going to be way longer just because before we even go into the clearings, I just want everyone to have like such a good understanding of what the fuck's going on, what we're clearing and why it's all happening and the whole shebang. So in this course, you are going to be in situations where you're gonna get to practice this in real time. What we are talking about, everything in here, all the dark forces, you're gonna get to practice it in here so you can master it. You'll get to practice clearing each one of these things off of you in here. So that being said, consider your higher self right now, opening up your protective shields and letting in the training dummy, okay? So like when we learn how to clear demons, for example, they're gonna be letting in kind of like a training dummy demon onto you so that you can learn how to clear them off. So you can learn what it feels like with them on, so you can learn what it feels like with them off, okay? So it's like your higher self, you're in full protection during this. Your higher self's just going to be letting in like the training dummies to get to practice in real time. So you can feel what it feels like with them, without them. So you can get used to feeling what it feels like in your life. The problem is that you have lived most of your life probably with these things attached to you and with other people's energy attached to you. You don't know any fucking different right now. You don't know how good you're gonna fucking feel when we get to all of these clearing processes. And sorry if I keep coughing. Again, I'm at the end of like a detox from an energy recovery I did the other week. Don't mind me. Okay, so that's one thing to really keep in mind and remember. When you're also watching this at home, what I don't recommend is going halfway through a module, stopping it before you clear yourself of whatever we're learning to clear in that module, okay? Because if we're in a module where we're learning to clear something, your higher self's gonna let that thing on you. Let's say you sit down and watch a module, you stop it halfway through, and you don't learn the clearing process yet and you don't do it yet. Now you're learning about it, so it's on you, the higher self let in the training dummy, and now you're gonna live with it on you till you get back to the course and learn how to clear it off. So whenever you go to watch these, make sure that you have the time to go through the full hour, whatever long the module is, so that you clear it off. And because the second you start watching the module with the clearings in them, your higher self will let a training dummy in so you can practice clearing it off. So with that being said, it's very, very, very important to watch the full module and clear it off before you finish versus letting it come on you, not stopping before you get to the clearing process and then living 2-3 more days before you get back to the module to clear it. Very, very important. You'll get to experience what it feels like to have your gifts shut down and then be able to open them up back right away in real time. It's really cool how we have this structured in here. So you get firsthand experience, demonstration, practicing, the whole fucking shebang. This is going to be, the first few modules is going to be more about self-defense of the negative energies versus taking them down. We're going to get to taking them down soon, but right now we've got to learn how to block before we can punch, right? We've got to learn how to block ourselves before we learn how to punch and take them down. And once again, it's like pollution. If we ignore the pollution, we are still going to get polluted, okay? So there's no ignoring these, no ignoring your way out of these. The second we start to expand our consciousness, we are taking in more light, but we're also taking in more pollution. If we even think about taking big breaths to purify our body when we do breath work, right? We're taking in more oxygen, but we're also taking in more contamination of just the pollution of literally the world, right? Of the air in the world. So what happens is months and years down the road, we're adding a bunch of gunk and pollution to our energy that needs to clear. And it's not necessarily dark forces that are messing up our lives. It's the expansion of consciousness and having all these things attached to us while we do that and we're not clearing. That's the problem. Okay, dark forces can't mess up our lives unless we let them and we let them sit there. So I want to go into talking about light and how this has to do with dark forces and the knowledge of them. Everything in this universe needs light to exist. The less light we have in our cells, the greater the risk of sickness and disease. Think of it like an MRI. Whenever you get an MRI, the part that is diseased or injured or whatever, the ailment is darker. It shows up on the MRI, it's literally darker. The healthy parts of the body are lighter. The wounded or diseased or ailment part of the body is literally darker. This is because our physical body is made up from our light body, okay? Our light body, our energetic body is what makes up our physical body. So we are perceived to be physical, but we're technically not. If I put my hands together right now, it's gonna look like they're touching. Even if I'm like squeezing them together, it's gonna look like they're touching. But if you were to take a high-powered microscope and you zoomed it into a subatomic level, you'd see that they actually aren't touching. The pressure that I'm feeling right now are just electrons pushing against each other, meaning we are like, we're just pretty much space. We're 99.99999% of just space. So there is no difference between us and the energetic beings running around. They just have more space than we do, and we are just more condensed energy, so that's why we can see ourselves, essentially. So the idea, what people think, is that we are physical and the other things aren't. That's not true. We are just more slowed down matter, so we can tangibly see ourselves with our physical eye. So these consciousnesses, these dark forces, they're just as real and tangible as us. And again, this is why we can't just send them to light, because that'd be like trying to send a human up to source with no knife, no gun, just with your mind. Like, it wouldn't work. So most of the time, it's these dark forces are people. Sometimes it's beings, sometimes it is parasitic energies. There's all different kinds, and we'll get into each kind in here. Don't you worry. But what happens is, before we even go into that, I just want to explain the light on our body a little bit more. So just like in an MRI, the diseased part shows up darker than all the healthier parts. That is our light body. The subatomic particles, the protons and neutrons that are all responsible for creating our light body, that creates our physical body as well. So if we get a problem with our light body, it's only a matter of time, months, years, decades, whatever, until our physical body also has a problem, because we are pretty much space, okay? Our light body is basically what has created our physical body. So if we have these dark entities on us for a long time, connected to our light body, and let's say it's connected to our heart, long term, we keep then missing pieces of our light body. Our light body keeps getting taken. The pieces of our heart light body keep getting taken and sucked by these dark forces, because they need light to exist, because they don't have the light of source like we do. So the longer they're on you, the more they take. Now it's gonna affect your physical body. Now you're gonna start to have actual physical heart problems because there's been a demon on you when it would actually just take you 2 fucking seconds to clear a demon off if you were taught how. You can avoid so many fucking problems with this. Not just in health, but in career, in finances, in life. And, obviously we'll continue to get into all of that. So we get light from the sun and from source, from food, right? Literal food. The sun grows the food, we eat the food, we get light from that, and source, obviously. What it takes, what it takes to get light from source is having a belief that there's something more than you in the universe, okay? It doesn't matter if you think source is a giant purple balloon in the sky, you still get the light because it just means that you have to have a belief. Whatever you believe source is, it doesn't matter. Like everyone's fighting over it's God, it's this, it's that, it's whatever. And if you just have a belief that there's something bigger than you, you are getting light from that thing, okay? Even if you believe it's like a big blue colored ladybug in the sky, like you are still getting light from source, okay? Now there are very few people on the planet that believe they're here because of a randomness in science that they misunderstood. Like a true atheist, like true atheist, very few people. But a true atheist on a good day is probably getting like 36% of light and vitality. Because once again, source can't go against our free will of what we believe to be true. So if we literally have zero belief that there's something bigger than us, it makes it just harder for source to give us the light. Not that source doesn't want to, or that source is punishing you. Take that out. Take that religious indoctrination out. That's not true. Source isn't like punishing you. Source just literally can't go against your free will of what you believe is possible and what you believe is true. So if the energetic body has a problem, the physical body is going to end up with a problem. If your energetic body takes a hit, it will take some time, but the physical body will get its damage done to it. And anything that's going on in the physical was damage energetically to your light body months or years prior. Now, something like a cold or like a little thing, that could have been a few weeks of damage, a few months, and then like the big, more annoying like disease, ailments, illness kind of thing, that would be taking a lot of months, a lot of years and a lot of missing pieces of your light body to cause a problem in your physical body. But don't be afraid, because you're in here, and I'm telling you this because we have solutions. I would never tell you this if I didn't have a solution for this. So like, don't forget to be like, Allie, you're ruining my whole fucking life and day. What the fuck? No. I'm only telling you this because we have all of the solutions you need in here. You don't have to live like this. You can get all your energy back. You can clear this stuff. Obviously, that's why we're here. I just want you to know what's going on, okay? Okay, so next thing is I want to talk about light and consciousness. So David R. Hawkins, he was a really incredible scientist who talked about the frequency of consciousness. He literally would measure it. So what he figured out is everything in this universe has to have a light content of 1 to 1,000 to exist in the universe that we are in realm 3, okay? And 1,000 is the limit of being able to maintain a collected matter, meaning that if you are higher than 1,000 frequency, you can no longer exist in realm 3 because your frequency is too high, it's too fast and too high frequency. Your body can't stay physical because the matter is literally moving too fast. Our bodies are physical because the matter is moving slower. Once it gets over 1,000, it's moving too fast to stay in like a physical body in realm 3 on Earth. And I think he used kinesiology to frequency test that amongst with a few other things. But for example, animals can have a consciousness from anywhere between 200 to 800. Fun fact, the more skittish and afraid they are, the higher consciousness it has. Dogs have a higher consciousness than cats. We could go through a whole animal thing, but that's like not the point of this thing. But another fun fact is that ducks have a higher consciousness than dogs. Isn't that like funny and cool? Like a random fact. We'll get more into animals later, but just like a fun little thing to throw out there for you. Now, a human being consciousness, about 6 billion people of the 8 billion people of the world have about a 187 consciousness right now. The planet actually desires to be at a 450 frequency right now, which is really cool. And so that's kind of why you see shit hitting the fan in the world is because the planet decided, hey, fuck this, man, I want to be vibrating at 450. How do we vibrate higher? We go through a lot of shit. We go through a lot of lessons. The more turmoil we've been in, the more we're going to grow in consciousness faster. And so we'll get to more on that later, but it's probably why you've been through a lot of trauma in your life, and I'll explain that in a second. But the planet desires to be at a 450 frequency, so which is super fucking cool. The higher the consciousness, essentially, the more you know. And so essentially, once you get to a 500 frequency consciousness, you are kind of like a mini, you have the understanding that source has a little bit. So you start to understand like, oh, my thoughts create my beliefs might create my reality. I can have control of the matter around me based on my emotions. You get a knowledge of the creator field. You kind of know how to shift and move matter and create and manifest in the way that source does. And you kind of start to become aware of that level of consciousness. Now, the higher in consciousness, the more like source that person has the potential to be. And not putting source on a pedestal, or not putting the person on a pedestal by any means. It's just the more source abilities that they can tap into. So, for example, Christ, his soul, and Buddha, the Buddha soul, are constantly coming back and shaking up the whole system and trying to raise the consciousness of the planet. Like I said, their souls are both back again in our lifetimes, which is like so much fun and like so cool. You know, some shit's gonna fucking happen. Some consciousnesses are gonna get raised when that happens. But they have been known to attain 1,000 frequency consciousness in the world over and over again each lifetime they come back into. So the higher up you go, the more your role in the world is to change the world. And this makes sense with dark forces in a second. I'm going to tie this all in. This is really important to know for this. Our souls choose these physical forms for a very specific reason. We chose to be here because this is like a school for us, okay? And it's the closest school of what we can experience to learn to be like source. So if you are back on Earth, which you are because you're watching this, it is no coincidence at all. It's very intentional. Your soul knew exactly what it was doing coming back here to learn lessons, to go through turmoil, to become more and more like source, in the sense of, again, not putting source or anyone on a pedestal, but just in the way of thinking, creating, manifesting, just knowing how the world works and how to move matter and understand this stuff. So don't ever think that you need to run away from the matrix, because if you are running away from the matrix, you're still trapped in the matrix, and the matrix still has control over you, meaning the dark forces, the MK Ultra, all those things of the world. And we'll get into what MK Ultra means later. But if you're trying to live a life where you are trying to escape, and I gotta run away and I gotta go live in the forest or wherever, in the mountains or the jungle, and like get away from these people, you are outrunning so many lessons that your soul is like literally back in our school to learn. And they'll find you. Don't think you're actually outrunning them. They will find you all the way in the jungle, all the way in your cabin. They will find you there. So that's also very important to understand. Our souls are so incredible. They pick the life and everything about the life so that they can best grow. So they pick the parents, they pick the turmoil experiences they go through as a child so that they can best grow and raise in frequency. The soul's goal is to just constantly raise in frequency points. And this earth school, this school that we're in now, can be measured in this 1,000 frequency scale. So like kind of how we have elementary school, middle school, and high school, the majority of the planet is in level 1 school. And again, remember, like I said it in module 1, nobody's better, nobody's worse, no one's more valuable than the other, okay? So we're not gonna like get an ego, a spiritual ego about this. It's literally just like school. You wouldn't say a first grader is more valuable or better of a human than a 12th grader. You would just say the 12th grader has been in school longer, okay? So maybe they know more math because they've been in school longer. But it doesn't mean that they're more valuable or that anyone should be on a pedestal or off a pedestal, okay? Very important to remember. But like how we have elementary school, middle school, high school, majority of the planet is in level 1 school, which the main focus there is self-love. Now, important, self-love is not the definition of self-love that you have heard in other places, okay? Self-love is not like taking the bath or like, you know, doing your nails. Like, yes, that is like a thing of treating yourself, but self-love is so much more deeper than that. And the definition you also normally hear of self-love is actually a very selfish version of self-love. So for example, a source channeled self-love is someone asking you to take them to the airport, like a friend that's been staying with you, right, that you know, obviously, and like they have no other way of getting to the airport. And real self-love is saying, yes, I'm going to take you to the airport and you're going to make sure you fill up your gas tank so you don't lose gas on the way. Meaning, that's kind of like a metaphor. It can be and it can't also not be, but meaning the metaphor is, yes, let me help you. Let me just make sure I'm filled up first. So self-love is just making sure that you're putting yourself first in your life. What happens though is people don't put themselves first and then they deem self-love as just like not helping anyone because like they're tired or they have their own thing going on. Self-love is just always making sure constantly you're putting yourself first. The source channel version of self-love is always making sure constantly you're putting yourself first so that then you have the gas to take the person to the airport. So that then you have the energy to give and provide and help others, okay? So the selfish would be, I don't have the energy to take you, you're on your own. And this person's like, fuck man, I have no one else to take me to the airport. Like, what am I supposed to do? And so essentially self-love is just always making sure you are your first priority all the time so that when it is time to show up for other people, you have the bandwidth, you have the energy versus what people think is self-love is just not showing up for people because you're tired, you can't do it, you're whatever. When in reality, you're not prioritizing yourself at all in the slightest. So you'll never be able to show up for people in the way that you have a potential to. So the first level one of school is to learn on a soul level to fill up the tank first, then give to others. It's learning the art of source version of self-love. It's the art of filling yourself up first to then be a service to other people. When you fully take care of yourself, that translates to a bigger career. That translates to better relationships. That translates to people seeing your value more. That translates to people paying you more. It just translates to so many things going the way you desire to go them. If I had to guess, that's the way you desire for them to go in your life. I doubt anyone desires for their life to not go that way. Doing that also puts you, when you've mastered that, or not maybe master, like about to master it, that puts you in the 300 frequency range. Now, in order to reach a 400 plus consciousness, you have to understand that you are putting yourself first and filling yourself up first, then you go and be of service to other people. So 187 frequency to 380 frequency, I'd say, is like learning self-love era. Okay, that's your learning self-love era as a soul. When you master this, it becomes a soul memory and it makes its way to the soul brain. So whatever you finish your consciousness at in one life, you're gonna come back in the next life at that same level of consciousness, okay? So this is how wild and how slow, perceivingly slow as humans this can be, but there's hacks for it to not be this slow, and like, we learn that in here, and we learn that in these courses. So a jump, even 4 points. So from like 190 to 194 in soul frequency, that could take about 1 to 4 lifetimes. A jump from a 1 to 187 frequency would probably take about like 100 something lifetimes. So when you master the level 1, you get to jump into level 2. And don't worry, I'll get to the hacks of how to jump faster soon. People approaching a 400 consciousness have had a motherfuck ton of lives, a fuck ton of lives. Now, that is just to clarify, the soul frequency, that is your potential. So even if that's your soul potential frequency of 400, if in that lifetime your human self blocks you and is so stubborn and like you won't heal through the turmoil and learn the lessons, that will stop you from reaching your soul frequency. And you as a human, the human version of yourself, can be vibrating lower than that on a soul basis. So a soul potential could be 400, but your human self could be vibrating at a 200 daily because of your thoughts, beliefs, the stubbornness and unwillingness to learn the lessons, etc. So that's something important to remember. You don't just like pop out. Well, you do pop out a 400 frequency and then you get, programmed, and then your human frequency starts to lower until you then unprogram yourself and find back who you are and the whole situation. So There are shortcuts to this though. So anytime we have massive turmoil, lots of trauma, lots of limiting stuff go on in our lives, our consciousness will raise much quicker. So I wouldn't be shocked if you're in here and you have been through a good amount of shit in your life. It's because your soul chose that for you, because your soul in this lifetime wanted to raise massive points in consciousness much quicker than maybe you have in other lives or whatever it may be. So if you've been through a lot of shit, it's great because your soul's gaining massive soul points. Like it could jump 100 or 200 or 300. It could go from a 400 to a 600, right? And like in a lifetime or even in a matter of years, if you are going through this turmoil and you're coming out of it and learning the lesson really, really quick, you're having a quick turnaround, right? Most people, they let the trauma eat them alive their whole life, and then maybe they only gain one little soul point from it for the next life because they're refusing to learn the lessons. If you've been through some shit in this lifetime, your soul's here to massively jump in consciousness in this lifetime, so we love that for you. So just like on a planet level right now, okay, right now the people of the planet are stuck as fuck. They're so stuck. And that's why the planet wants to up level. Because right now the planet desires, if you talk to the planet and you channel the planet, it desires to operate at 450 frequency across the board, collectively. Okay, not just one person, not just 10, not just 100, collectively. The collective frequency of the planet, it desires to be a 450. So that could mean like some people are 300, some people are vibrating 800, then collectively it evens itself out, right? So because it's not operating at that, because it desires to operate at that, the level of obstacles going on right now on the planet are massive and huge because the planet wants to massively up level in consciousness. And because of that, it has to send everyone through extreme obstacles and extreme turmoil to do so. And the funniest part is if the more people who just learn the lessons, the less we'd have to go through collectively on the planet. So that's why that's going on a planetary level, for some fun information on that. Now, what happens is once we cross the level 1 school, we get into the level 2 school. Once we get into the level 2 school, that is between a 400 and a 690 consciousness, okay? And this is the consciousness that is the need to be of service to the world, okay? So you're responsible for the first level, right, of the self-love, prioritizing yourself so you can effectively then be helping human beings live better lives. All of us, no matter what consciousness we're at, it has been proven by psychology that we have the need to contribute to the world, whether it's big or small. This need in this consciousness level is a little bit bigger, has a little bit bigger of like the soul pull to contribute to the world in some way, shape, or form, okay? So the 1 to 300 range, it's too strong, and we end up wanting to help people before filling ourselves up. So the lesson there is to master filling ourselves up first, okay? Then once we master filling ourselves up first, the soul then reaches a 400 to 690 in the consciousness scale in level 2 of Earth School, okay? Filling yourself up first gives you the right to then be on some kind of, not necessarily like stage or platform, but like in some kind of way of helping people, as many people as possible. Now, don't freak out, okay? If you have had in your life, if you've been like, oh my God, it's been so hard for me to put myself first, blah, blah, blah. It's just about mastering that, right? It's about remembering that. And it doesn't mean that your soul's maybe down to 400. It just means that your human self has been programmed, right? Because soul frequency is very different than human frequency. So your soul could be at a 400. You could have been programmed to not put yourself first by your mom who put herself last and gave all the needs to your dad first or whatever it was. But if you work through that, you can then get yourself to be in alignment with your soul frequency. And it's your beliefs right now and how you act right now does not determine your soul frequency. It determines how close you are to it and how much you act along with it. But soul frequency is very different than like the beliefs you got put onto you. So you're here, 400, 690 frequency, you're here to learn to become the most effective version of yourself when it comes to helping people, the most effective healer, essentially in some way, shape, or form in the world. excuse me. When there's no longer anything to learn there, you then step into the 700 to 1,000 frequency range, which is essentially called the Ascended Master range. So like Jesus, Buddha, and other people have reached those 1,000 frequency consciousnesses. Now, you just existing in a high frequency emotional state between 700 to 1,000 frequency is massively helping, whether those people know you or not, 1 million people minimum. And don't mistake this for famous people, okay? Famous people, especially in Hollywood, especially in media, especially in like places like that, have gotten there through dark forces, which we will get into. So don't mistake that fact with, oh, then all famous people are in that frequency and then everyone who's not famous isn't. No. It's not about if you have 1 million followers or 1 million people listening to what you're saying. It's just your presence at existing at a high frequency emotional state too. Like you have to put in work to exist at a high frequency emotional state too to match your soul frequency. It is you just doing that, even if people don't know you. It is just massively helping just raise the consciousness of minimum 1 million people of the planet. Whether you're saying anything online to people or you're saying anything or you wrote a book or not, just you could just be existing and that could happen. So again, don't mistake that for famous people. That is not how that works, because they got there through a completely different outlet, through a dark force outlet way, which again, trust me, we're going into. So what this means dark force wise is the more you are, the brighter you are, the higher you are in consciousness. Okay, so the more turmoil you've been through, the more lessons that you've gotten through that turmoil, the more food that you are for them, okay? It means that dark force wise, the dark forces know you're going to be the highest quality of energy to sustain their life force. People who are very disconnected from light, or people who are very much stuck in their own emotional turmoil, are going to sense that I can get my food and my light from them. It's just going to sense it. This is why we need this course. The more you're more in danger, not actual danger, but like quote danger of dark forces, the higher you go in consciousness and frequency, because you're the brightest light. You get more and more and more bright. So that's more and more food and energy source to sustain their life, okay? Versus having to like suck on someone else's light at like a 187 for like 5 hours to get it. They could go suck on someone at like a 600 for like 2 minutes and get way more, or an 800 and suck on it for 2 seconds and get way more light. And so they're like, oh, yum yums, food, sustainability, life source, let me flock to you. So exactly why we need this course, another reason of why we need it. So Christ was actually really cool, because Christ talked about all of the time the need to fight and clear off these dark energies. If you really dive in and really intuitively lower the veil and really dive into his actual story of when that soul was Christ, it's cool because you can see that he really had this like passion to teach people how to fight off these dark energies. So even Christ was talking about this. And again, Christ is back in this life. And again, I think that he's a male again in this life. I think it's a guy. And Christ would never, even if Christ remembered that he was Christ, he would never be like, oh, I was Jesus. So if anyone's telling you they were Jesus, like they weren't, because don't listen to that. But the actual Jesus is back in this life. And even if he went through a past life and remembered it and went through a regression of a past life and saw it and like knew it to be true, and if it was actually Christ, like he would not be telling you. So if anyone's out there telling you they're Jesus, they're definitely not. So don't listen to that. Let's ask questions. Okay. How do I differentiate symptoms of a demon on me versus just being in my luteal phase? That's a great question. And it's like funny because we were talking about luteal phases. We will get to that when we do the demon module. We have these dark forces, we're really putting them on a pedestal. Like we got a whole module for each of them. They're going to be thriving with how much we're learning about them. Actually, they'll be hating it because they don't want you to learn about them. But we're going to have a special module for each dark force. It'll be great. And we'll learn that in there for sure. If someone struggles with anxiety, is the root cause usually a dark force? The root cause may not be a dark force, but they could have had maybe 15% out of 100 extreme anxiety. That then makes them vulnerable. That then makes their energy a match for a dark force to get in and amplify it. So the dark force could amplify the anxiety to 60%, to 70%, to 80%, when originally the anxiety was just at 15%. And if we don't know how to clear the dark forces, now we're having anxiety problems when we might have just had barely any anxiety problems before. Maybe we had anxiousness about one little thing. Well, now the dark force came on and it just fucking blew it up, and now you're anxious about everything. I just want to hear you talk about filling your tank, because something I've learned is that it feels hard to figure out what that means for yourself. I used to think doing an at-home spa night every Sunday, cross it off the list, but you've taught me that doesn't cut it. I think how you explain actions is helpful for other people too. Can you dive into that? Because a lot of people listening might think doing one thing a week might be enough, but it's so much more than that. Yes, good question. So reminder that COO Sarah Queen is in here asking questions, common questions that everyone will probably have watching this. And one time for her, she does this like awesome spa night every week for herself on Sundays. And she does it every week for herself. And then when she started like working with me, we had a lot of tasks on our plate. We had a lot more things. She had a lot more things then going on in her life, because she was in between being a COO somewhere else and then being a COO here. She was like in just a between state where she was just training other COOs, excuse me, on her own time. Anyway, why I'm explaining this to you is because when then she came on the team and we started working together, she started having more on her plate, right, than she was used to for a few months. So that being said, you then have to amp up your self-love practices. So just the spa night every Sunday won't be enough. Self-love looks like making yourself a priority every single morning. So it's like first thing when I wake up, I'm not looking at my phone. I'm not answering to anyone. I am doing my current practices, and those change based on the season I'm in, but I'm doing right now my current manifesting practices for a certain amount of money I desire to bring into my business this next year. So I'm doing my practices, my things, it doesn't even have to be like a physical thing you go do. It can just be you do your energetic practices in the morning in bed. You kind of give yourself what you need first, then you show up for others. I always go sit in the sun and I do these practices and I like do something for myself first before I show up and give to others. It helps me better give to other people. Is there a way we can see dark forces on other people? Yes, absolutely. And we will get to that when we start learning each kind, what they are and what's going on. We can see them through our third eye and with our intuition. Is there any risk with the training dummy dark forces? Good question. No risk at all. Our higher self knows we're watching this and learning this, so our higher self's gonna be like, hey, come on in. You might already have one though. Like you're probably gonna already have some of these, so if you do, you won't need a training dummy because you just have them on you, so you're gonna clear them off. The risk would be to not clear them off. The risk would be to not learn this and to not go through with clearing it. And here, you so much lower any kind of risk you would have of these things hurting you because you're learning about it. If there is a case where we learn a certain kind of dark force and you don't have that kind on you, higher self will open up your field, call one in as a training dummy that won't do anything other than just allow you to like practice what it feels like with it on you, clear it off, see what it feels like with it off of you. Amazing. Good questions. Thank you, Queen Sarah. Okay, incredible job, everybody. I will see you in the next module. Bye.